everybody wants their business to succeed, right? Like nobody starts a business with the intent on failing. However, there is a certain mentality that we must develop in order for our businesses to be successful. I know we're used to saying that hustle, 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 grind, grind, grind. And true indeed, those things are needed, but it would only get you so far. Again, there's a certain mentality that we must develop. We must develop the CFO mentality. For those of you who are unfamiliar with C-level management, a CFO is a chief financial officer. And today I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with a CFO. I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Terrell Turner, CPA, who offers small businesses CFO services. And we did the interview, and I'm excited to tell you about it. We're going to get to it after this, man. But as you watch this, you'll see me fumbling over my words simply because he was giving away so much valuable, useful information that my mind couldn't keep up. I was trying to figure out other things to say and ask because as he was saying it, my mind was exploding like, what? Is it really just that simple? This is what we really need? So hope you enjoy this video. We gonna get to it. Mr. Terrell Turner, CPA, CFO, right after this. Man, well, look, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I do appreciate you hopping on here, joining us, to kind of help us understand the mentality of growth, right? Like helping us, make that mind shift from and we've had this discussion before, right? Like, we're so used to the term hustle, right? We want to hustle. Everything is a hustle, from the side hustle, or I hustled my way to the top. That term I think is kind of misleading, right? Because you can hustle, right? Like, to me, hustle simply means hard work and dedication. But once you get to a certain point, you have to not only hustle, but you have to have a certain mentality, right? And that's what you offer folks, is that CFO. So before we get too deep, right, because we are going to be talking to the people, let them know who you are.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, my background is accounting and finance. I started off, probably like most people who went the route of corporate accounting. Got a master's degree so I can qualify to get my, sit for the, get my CPA license. Started off and working for one of the big four, so one of the four largest public accounting firms. Did that for a couple of years and decided to move over to working in industry. So I started working for a Fortune 500 company. It was about 14 billion in revenue at the time, and did different finance roles there. And I think that's why I really realized, like, I like the financial side of accounting more so than the technical accounting. And so I did a lot of roles of working like with the engineering team, of helping them kind of understand, here's what the accounting is telling us. Here's what decisions we should probably consider based off of the data that we're seeing. And did a role in investor relations, which was, it was, at the time, it was a little overwhelming, but it was one of those things that I definitely forced me to step my game up and grow into it. I mean, I was in early mid 20s or whatever. And part of the role was working with, with the VP and also the CEO and the CFO of a $14 billion company, of helping them communicate with the investors. So several times, like, I would be on the phone with Wall Street analysts, kind of reading some of their reviews on us, and calling out things that were in their financial models that I'm like, yeah, this doesn't seem consistent with what we said before. I think you guys should look at it. And plus, you have those SEC rules to where I couldn't give them insider information. So I had to figure out, how do I tell them that their answer is wrong without giving them the right answer?
Right. Don't want to get caught up in an insider trading.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it was great. I mean, because like I said, in some of those instances, people hear about, all these corporate executives that have to do these earnings calls. Well, some of the stuff that they were saying on those earnings calls were things that I had wrote verbatim, like, hey, I think you should explain it this way, and literally wrote it out for them. And that's what they were reading on those calls. So, I mean, it gave me a whole new perspective. And then from that, I went to work down in South America to work as in finance for their South America division, lived down in Brazil for a year. I came back, I took a finance leadership role with General Electric, did several finance roles there, moved around a good bit, and decided my wife and I wanted to get away from the Midwest winters, moved to the Carolinas. I did a director of finance role with a tech company, and really learned a lot about raising capital and acquiring other companies. We raised about 65 million in private equity. We bought 2 other companies. I was building out a team, and kind of got to the point where I was like, I think I have all the skills that I need to start my own. And so so I took all that experience and said, okay, how do I help small and medium-sized businesses, from a bookkeeping to make sure, hey, your books are right. And then on a CFO's perspective is, all right, now how do we get you to start thinking at a higher level so that we're actually developing wealth in your business, and you get out of just the hustle of, I'm just trying to close the next deal. Yes. Now I'm helping business owners. How do we actually build a business so you're actually developing some kind of wealth?
There it is, man. And even in all of that, man, you left out a few accolades, man. What is you under the 30, under 30?
The right? 40 listed, under 40.
40 under 40, right? Listed in the New York Times, brother. I mean, you have, you know what? Hey, shout out to you, brother. That right there. I had to give you one of those because that is dope, man. I didn't know all that, and we didn't talk a couple of times, right? So, man, shout out to Mr. Terrell Turner, CPA. Wow, man, a lot of experience, man. And now that's dope that you're taking that corporate high-level experience and bringing it down here to where the people are and helping them get to that high-level experience, man. That's why I'm so honored to have you here helping us understand what that requires, right? So you are CPA, right? You and your wife, is your wife also your partner? Does she work with you, or?
Yeah, so she does some, I mean, a little bit more limited because she's still a finance executive with Honeywell. So, I mean, she has quite a bit of responsibilities there. So she helps out some. But like I said, she's a pretty busy lady in her profession as well.
Okay, good, man. Well, still, y'all a finance team. Everybody in the house understands money. So let me just start with the questions, my brother. Let me ask the question. You, in your own firm, you more or less take on the role of a CFO, right? That's what you do. That's the value you bring to the clients in which you serve. So for those of us who may not understand it, we've heard the term, right? The C-level executives, the CFO, the chief financial officer. What is the primary role of a CFO?
Yeah. So, I mean, the CFO, the best way to explain it is they are the ones that are looking at the numbers, and they're looking at, the strategy of how do we get from point A to point B? Because if you say like, hey, we want to make more money in our business. Okay, cool. What are our options? And then what's the reality of the financial trade-offs we need to make to actually get there? I mean, because it's one thing to say, hey, we want to make more money. Then you got to really start getting honest. Like, how are we going to do that? And as you start thinking through that strategy, the CFO steps in to be able to say, hey, based on what we know, if we do this strategy, yes, we will hit that goal, or nah, that's still not going to do it. So we need to actually make some tweaks. So it really helps you bring the financial side of your strategy to life so that you know, hey, we're headed in the right direction.
Gotcha, man. Even with just in that, there was so many things, right? So, which kind of like a segue into my next question, like, what does having a CFO do for a company? But I think you kind of answered it. But I think even if, or should I say, for a CFO to be um, successful, right? Because you mentioned a few things, right? You help people get from point A to point B. So one, they have to have a plan, right? Like, which I know a lot of small business owners, especially when they're new developing, they don't even write a business plan. They just get up and go. Like, we have this idea, we know we want to make money. I do know I gotta find a customer that's willing to pay, and that's about as much planning that is done, right? So in order, and so what a CFO does is you really come down and you lay that foundation and say, hey, yeah, you want to make money, but we need to know X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, we do that a lot because I mean, I work with a lot of business owners in different different ranges. Like, so for those that we're working, we're doing like monthly recurring services, meaning we're working together on a monthly basis. Those are going to be kind of your larger businesses, but even down to like we work with some businesses that are in the idea stage,
Mm,
where what we then do is like, okay, all right, what's your idea? And this is one of those things that even like my wife sits back and my wife says, even her being a finance person, she was like, I'm always impressed with what you're able to do.
mm,
Because literally the first time that I started doing this, someone, we had I had a conversation with an entrepreneur that was trying to bring a hair care product from Europe to the US. He
okay.
sent me a text message. We had about a 30-minute conversation. And from that, I created, a full set of 3-year P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow just off of what he sent me in the text message in our 30-minute conversation.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, and so after I sent him that, I'm like, here, based on everything that you and I talked about, and based on what you sent me in this text message and the strategy, here's what I think makes sense. And within about 3 weeks, so he was talking to other companies about, like where we were going to distribute it because they were trying to get it into department stores. And within
Okay.
about 3 weeks after reviewing that and, him kind of getting the word out, I guess someone at L'Oreal had gotten a copy of the investor deck. And so they called him and said, hey, we want you guys to fly to New York so we can talk about this business because we like what we're seeing. And he
Wow.
came back to me and he said, the financials are really what caught their attention. And I think for me, that really sparked to where it's just like, even for business owners, where I always say, if your idea is on a napkin, we can create a financial model around that. And really what it does is it starts to help you understand, like you say, hey, we want to make money. Okay. Based on the pieces that we know, here's how much money you would make based on these pieces and these assumptions. And I think that's where it really helps a lot of business owners start to realize like, oh, you know what? I need to make some tweaks on this thing, or hey, I need to actually put a little bit more effort into this plan
Wow.
because I can take this thing even further if we have a better plan. And so my is really to help them kind of crystallize what that picture looks like.
Wow. Wow. So that's what having a CFO does for a company. I mean, I really hope that those who are listening and watching this, man, understood that clearly. Just having and I'm sorry, I keep tracking back, but L'Oreal, that is a big name brand company, right? That they billion-dollar industry that put eyes on a financial plan that you put together off of a text message and a 30-minute conversation. That off a text message and a 30-minute conversation. And from that, 3 years worth of financial projections that caught the eye of a company that has a billion-dollar revenue stream. Wow,
Absolutely.
bro.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, but
It,
that to me, that's so powerful. That just knowing, I always tell people run the numbers, right? Like I said, when people come to me and I'm not even on your level, I'm not going to even pretend to say that I am where you are. I just know that before we get to talking about forming LLCs and doing this and doing that, what do the numbers say? Right? Like to me, the numbers are, I don't want to say the greatest thing, but they have a very hefty importance in the business. And to me,
Absolutely.
you just proved that point.
It's something I tell people is that, no matter what type of business you're looking to start, it is going to be hard work.
Yes.
What you want to run the numbers to make sure is that work going to be worth it, because I always tell people, no matter what business, is going to be hard work. And if you're going to do hard work, make sure you're not doing it for pennies, because you may be building a business that is not set up to be very profitable. You're still going to have to do some hard work to even make very little money. So you want to get an idea of that. And which is why, like I said, we really enjoy working with people who are kind of early stage, to where, usually in about an hour to an hour and a half in a conversation, I can usually give you at least a P&L to say, hey, based on your idea, based on some very, research during the conversation, here's what I think, your financial projection looks like. And then that person can sit back and say, hey, is that really worth it? Or do I need to go do something else? Or are there some other options that I can do to tweak things? Because as I said, you're going to work hard when you start a business. You just want to make sure that, hey, does this have the potential of being worth my effort?
Got you, man. Well, can I ask, can I, get privy to some information? When you say you sit down and you talk to people, what questions as a CFO do you ask a business owner?
Yeah. So here's how we usually approach it. And like I said, I was just doing this with a law firm yesterday, where we kind of looking now for them, since they were already operating, it was a little easier because they had some data. It's like, okay, all right, what does revenue look like on a, on kind of like on the average on a monthly basis? Like how much revenue you're bringing in. Now, if it's a company that hasn't started yet, the question is, okay, all right, what are your prices going to be? And most of them are like, well, we don't know yet. So, okay, all right, what do you think your prices are going to be? And then, okay, how many customers do you realistically think you'll be able to achieve? Most people don't know. So we usually do some conversation to kind of get to figuring that out, like how big the market is, how many people can you serve and stuff like that. And we usually come up with a number to say, okay, all right, here's what your prices might be. Here's what your volume might be. Here's how much revenue you make. Now, what are the types of things that you need to be able to provide that product or that service, so we can get an idea on how much is this idea going to cost you? Because it's, and I think that becomes important, because a lot of people hear about all these companies and their top line. Oh, this is $1 billion company. And they're just talking about revenue. They're not talking about net profit, which I'm telling every business owner, like, you can't live off of revenue, because you still got to pay everybody else. Like, you don't get to keep 100% of the revenue. Everybody else who helped you get that revenue, they expect to be paid. And, and a lot of business owners don't think about that. They're like, oh, we want to be $1 million business. And I was running some numbers for someone and just saying, okay, all right, based on, we figured out, what your average price would be. We figured out what your average volume. So I can tell you, here's how much revenue. The next question is like, what are the expenses? Like, are you planning to hire people? Like, are you going to hire, contractors from overseas? Are you going to hire people locally? And that way we can start to figure out the cost. And then we can see, okay, all right, here's about how much profit you're going to make in your business based on these prices, this cost, here's what your profit looks like. Then the fun part comes in, and all right, now what can we change? Well, if you tweak your product this way, maybe we can raise the price and you can get more profit margin. So what changes can we make to the product? Or, hey, can we create a low, medium, high version of your product? So then we can actually raise the prices and we can actually start working through some strategy. And then also on the cost, it's like, hey, what cost here can we either partner with another company to outsource some of that to limit the amount of money that you have to put out up front? And how do we start to strategize that? So those are like some of the, the way that some of the conversations go.
Man, I feel like we could probably end it right there, because that right there was like the I'm at a loss for words. I can't even say right there, because those set of questions, that scenario, right, that sequence of questions, it seems so simple. Like it should be common sense to think, yeah, okay, what is my price going to be? Okay, how big is the market, right? I think we can even pause right there, because I don't even think people take time to really consider their market size. I was reading a book and they call it the total addressable market, right? The TAM. And it's like, how many, especially beginning entrepreneurs who didn't have college level education, they just have an idea, they have a passion, and they say, I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna make this happen because social media is making people millionaires. So I'm about to hop on that train, but really have no clue and no idea what it really takes to get this going. That right there, man, I think I'm gonna chop that out and just put that on a pie and play that back to myself, because that was some very, man, thank you for that, because that was dope. That was dope.
Hey, I'm glad to help, man. And I agree with you on that total addressable market, like that TAM. I mean, I think very few people actually sit back and really address that. Like, some of my restaurant clients, meet a lot of people to say, hey, I love cooking. I really want to turn this into a bakery or restaurant. So let's talk through numbers. And one of my good friends, when he started his first restaurant in 2019, he was like, hey, I want to start a restaurant. I'm like, okay, all right, so let's run some numbers. And, we started looking at, hey, what does the total addressable market look like? And he was like, well, in the city, there are X number of people that live there. I'm like, let's be honest. Not all those people eat, you're making soul food. Not all those people want soul
Right,
food.
right.
So I'm like, let's, be honest about who is like, how big is the potential customer market? And when we started narrowing it down, we were able to really identify, okay, all right, let's say is this number of people. And then of that, okay, how many of those people kind of eat out on a regular basis?
Mm,
Now that becomes a bit easier to find out is when you start looking at things like, census data to see, hey,
okay.
based on, how much disposable income does the average family in this area have? Now, if you understand census data, it's easy to find that stuff because all of
Right.
it's there. You just got to kind of know where to look. And so by the end of it, we were able to come up with a number, and I was able to say, okay, all right, based on all this data, I can tell you your total addressable market is X.
Right.
Now, when we went through and we looked at, hey, how much does it cost you to run your restaurant and all that stuff, we were able to figure out what's your break even like? How many customers do you need a day to be able to break even? And is your total addressable market big enough for that to make sense? And when we did that exercise, we came back and we said, yes, your total addressable market is more than big enough for you to be able to, sustain your business. And so year one went well. I mean, went into the pandemic. The total addressable market got smaller.
Of
I mean, because
course.
people weren't coming out more. So, we went back, looked at a strategy of bringing a food truck on with the business, and that expanded the total addressable market because now you can make the restaurant you can make the product more mobile. You can actually
Right.
go to different locations, and that worked out well. And, was it 2 years in and 2 year anniversary? We opened up a third, I guess a second physical location.
Wow.
And right now we're in the process of closing to open up a third physical location that should be open in the January, February timeframe, to where a lot of that, as he tells everybody, hey, it comes down to really just knowing your numbers. When you know your numbers, it was like this becomes a math game.
Wow, the numbers is money. I tell people, man, people lie, numbers don't. You know, that's I'm almost embarrassed the fact that I keep just losing my loss for words because you're blowing my mind right now with just this information. I'm not. How can I say, man? I guess because I'm getting overexcited for this. Just to be honest with you, man. Like my mind is just going. The more you talk, the more my mind is just going all over the place. Like, man, he is really dropping something that I'm passionate about. So I'm getting really excited about it. Really helping people understand what the numbers mean, what knowing your numbers can result in. Right? Could like just in that example that you just gave with the gentleman open up a restaurant. Hey, I'm gonna go open up a restaurant. I hear people say that all the time, like, hey, I want to go, I'm gonna, start this because I want to. Well, slow down. Let's really look at that and see, right? I can imagine how much of a struggle it would have been if he just would have opened it without having a conversation with you, without you really telling him to slow down, pause. Let's look at this from a realistic point of view. Like you said, be honest with yourself, right? Like, yeah, it's a million people in the world, but of those million people, not everybody is your customer, right? Like not everybody eats soul food, right? Like my wife, soul food fanatic. Like we love soul food here in California, but there's just some restaurants we just don't eat. Cause even within what I'm saying that, cause even within a soul food market, there's some people who don't eat that soul food. Right? Like, if I say that because my wife will go to a place and she'll eat it. She'll be like, I ain't going back in no more. I don't like it. They greens, they had too much vinegar. I'm like, she be critiquing, you know what I'm saying? But it's like you have to understand, even within your recipe, who is going to like this. Like some people put sugar in their greens, some people put vinegar. Who you have to know these things, right? And so, and that's the reason I'm getting all flabbergasted with this, because this is the essence, in my opinion, right? And I'm saying this because I'm a numbers guy. I like running the numbers, and it feels good to have somebody really solidify what I'm trying to get people to really understand. The numbers are important before you do anything, before you make your first purchase, before you spend the first dollar. It has to be strategically spent, right? So again, man, I appreciate you coming on here, just really dropping that on. So this is a CFO conversation. This is the kind of conversations that happen at the top. I just want people to understand that, right? Like if the people in your circle aren't having this kind of conversation, then you might want to reconsider your circle. I'm saying, so I'm glad Terrell is in my circle. I'm glad to have Mr. Turner here with me right here today, man. Oh, boy. All right.
No, hey, it's a pleasure to be here. I mean, and one of the things that I always tell people about, running the numbers is like, I may sound biased because that's my background, but
Right.
one of the things I learned from, working in that role where I was constantly on the phone with Wall Street analysts and working with, the CEOs and CFOs, and, had the chance to meet some of our institutional investors where their job is to manage billions of dollars in assets. And, when you meet different people and they're like, oh man, the market is down, and you would see people stressing out. And one of the things that I asked a lot of those, like I said, major investors is just kind of like, do you freak out as much when the market is down? And they were like, not really, because when you really get a good grasp of the numbers, it gives you peace in the midst of like those chaotic times, because it's like you know the numbers, and you know that, hey, we need to make this tweak, we need to make this tweak. And so for me, it became getting a good grasp of your numbers allows you to kind of avoid the stress that comes with just kind of guessing when you're trying to build a business, because there's going to be a lot of stressful times. Like I was working with a bakery in a small town, in which, if you think about like that bakery, the town that they're in, most people probably would have told them like, hey, you guys are going to be working nonstop and stuff like that. And So we've been working on some strategies and helping them kind of understand their numbers and helping them understand, hey, these products you don't make as much margin on. Let's take those out the menu. Let's, adjust this to where before we started working together, they were working 7 days a week and they were just exhausted. And I'm just like, let's get a
Wow.
better handle on your numbers. And then now that they know their numbers, we came up with a strategy. Now they're taking 2 days off a week and they're like, yo, we're not even worried anymore because we
Wow.
know the numbers and we know how to work the number because now it's a math game. It's just about math and relationships at this point. And so they're able to have more peace of mind in what would normally be a stressful business. And I think that that's one of the huge benefits of, like I said, of knowing your numbers. It allows you to have way more peace of mind because, like I said, you're going to work hard. So you're going to need that peace of mind and not go
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely. Wow. That right there is another jewel, man. How knowing the numbers is not only a financial benefit, but a health benefit.
Yeah.
Can you like imagine stressing less just because you are aware of how things are going, right? Like instead of panicking, you're able to pivot because you know your numbers. And now instead of working 7 days a week,
Yeah.
which some people want to normalize, like, hey, I'm my own business owner. So it's a badge of honor that I'm working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Like that's a badge of honor. And it's like, no, that means you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
In my opinion, when people say that, like I don't want to ever, talk down to nobody, but it's not a badge of honor to be self-employed and then working 160 hours a week, if that's even possible. Well, it is because 168 hours in 7 days. But they like, yeah, man, I'm working, I'm grinding, I'm hustling. I'm like, that just means you doing something wrong. And to
Yeah.
sit up here and hear you say that that can be alleviated simply by knowing the numbers. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that becomes a very big problem with the mentality of, hey, I got to go out there, I got to get this bag. And
Right.
people are grinding, they're hustling. Now, a lot of people that I'm meeting, like, they're out there, they're getting the bag. And but what they don't realize is they're not keeping as much as they're getting on the front end because they got all these expenses to pay. And they're exhausted and they're running out of time to be able to actually enjoy it, to where when you take a step back and you really think about, like, hey, how do we go about this strategically? And when we get strategic about it, what I will definitely tell people is, in the beginning it seems like, man, I'm not making as much money. But as you continue to work that strategy and that more strategic approach, what you'll realize is you'll end up making more money with a well thought out strategy than you would if you were just purely going for hustle. And that's
Uh,
why I tell people that CFO mentality is about going from hustling of, you traded your day job for a new job. Now your business owns you, to where that
right.
CFO mentality allows you to now own the business and get the business to really work for you, and you could have less stress. And I'm telling you, definitely end up having and developing more wealth when you get more strategic about it.
Wow. Wow. That is that right there, man. So many nuggets is coming out of this, man. I'm gonna have fun breaking this down. So let me ask this here, just to kind of I'm gonna say tone it down, man, because you've been giving some high level information, right? uh just to bring it down just a little bit. What is the difference? And I hope that those who are watching this could automatically see, but I just want to make sure I ask and clarify what is the difference between what a CFO offers and what a regular bookkeeper offers, or bookkeeping.
Yeah. So typically your regular bookkeeper is gonna, reconcile bank accounts. Like, let's say, for example, most business owners usually have like a QuickBooks account.
Right.
They connect it to their bank account, all these different expenses show up. They don't know what to do with them.
Mm,
That's what the bookkeeper steps in. The bookkeeper steps in. All right, these transactions are this type of expense. So they make sense of all these different transactions that come in. And then at the end of it, what they usually tell you is, hey, your reports are ready. You can go in and look at your reports. Well, for the average business owner, like they're like, okay, it's good that they're ready. I still don't know how to read this stuff. So that's where I would say the CFO, a really, really, really good bookkeeper could be able to do this, but that's definitely where the CFO steps in and looking at those financials and saying, okay, all right, this is what it means for your business. Now, in light of what you want to do next, or in light of, let's say, how much money you want to make in this business, what adjustments do we need to make in the operations for that to become a reality?
Got you. So, and again, I don't want to necessarily put this like, here for everybody listening, saying, oh, this is my bookkeeper's responsibility to do this. I'm going to put that onus back on the business owner as well to say, you should also not just accept it from a bookkeeper. Say, okay, they say, okay, here's your report. And you say, thank you. If you accept that, then you deserve that. Right. So as a business owner, it is also your responsibility to sit up here and say, yo, I need this type of service. I need this type of information translated for me, because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to receive it. Right. But at the same time, be willing to pay for it. Because I know a lot of people don't see value in the numbers. That really blows my mind. Like, I know small business owners, especially, and I don't know what it is. I'm honestly just gonna blame social media, right? Let's blame TikTok because it's popular right now. They just want to spend money on things because somebody said do so, and they really don't do nothing, right? Like, we at the recording of this video, we're in the last quarter of the year. And I see a lot of people on social media like, oh yeah, go spend money so you can write it off. And I'm like, it don't work like that. Like, you just because you spend $1,000 does not mean that you're going to be able to reduce your taxes by $1,000. Like, the correlation doesn't work like that. But we will spend money on frivolous things, but not on things that's important. Because when it says, okay, here's my service, here's a fee, that costs too much. But then you have no problem spending $700 for a pair of Balenciaga tennis shoes or something like that. So I'm putting this responsibility on the business owners. Like, if you really want to scale your business and grow your business, you're going to have to invest in a CFO, which brings to my next point, right? At what point should a business consider hiring someone like you, somebody who offers CFO services, right? Like you, I know we said in the early beginning, they can have that conversation initially, right? But is there a certain point where if they're just starting off, maybe they don't have the revenue, they're bootstrapping everything, a little strap for cash. At what point would somebody say, hey, now I should consider getting a Terrell Turner in my life?
Yeah, I mean, and to be completely honest with you, this is one of those questions that I really do struggle with the best way to answer this question at times. Because I mean, as a business owner, my goal is, how do we provide a solution that people need? And one of those things of balancing that with, all right, there is a real cost to this. And I know, like, the whole role of a CFO is I'm going to know what your finances look like. And so it's just like me trying to help you get a strategy to grow where you need to go, knowing that I'm charging you a rate that you can't afford to pay.
Right.
It becomes a struggle. So what the ways that we've kind of approached it. And so to answer your question directly, I always tell business owners like, hey, if once you start making 350,000 a year in revenue, that's probably the time where we need to have a conversation about more monthly kind of us working together, like working together with a fractional CFO and stuff like that. And I mean, and if you do the math on that, what 325 is like, you're making about, let's say, $27,000 a month, I think is about what that comes in revenue. And then because you got enough money to where you got to start making some strategic decisions about, hey, if we're going to grow this to the next level, we got to be strategic about this. Now, one of the things that we've done, which is a little bit more unique from other companies or other, fractional CFOs out there. Some of them, like I said, they only focus on major companies because they're only looking for recurring. But since we know that, hey, our goal is to take what we've learned with these major mega companies, bring it down to small and medium-sized businesses, we often do, working with a company that's less than 325K a year. We will do, let's say, quarterly check-ins where it's just like, hey, once a quarter, we'll sit down, we'll review your financial numbers, and we'll hop on a 2-hour call. Let's do an assessment and give you some feedback, because that becomes something that fits a little more in their price point, because, they're not at a point where they can afford to pay us on a monthly basis, nor do they even need us on a monthly basis. Because sometimes they just need a quarterly check-in and they need some guidance on, hey, here's something I think you should keep in mind between now and the next quarter that we meet. Hey, keep these things in mind. Here are your top metrics and stuff like that. And even further, one of the things that we're in the talks and working on are, using like, Google products to create actual dashboards for, where people can actually pay to just get access to a dashboard that will be specific for their company, to where on a monthly, a fraction of what it would cost to hire us, is they'll be able to get tools that they can use, self-service tools that, we can work to connect it with their accounting system to where it's automatically updating, to where they're going to start getting those metrics on a regular basis for a fraction of the fee for a subscription to some of those dashboards and stuff. Because we're always trying to solve that problem of how do we provide people the value at a level that works for their business, but still helps them make it to the next stage.
That's nice. That's nice. Sounds like I hear you guys about to enter into some software development, right? And about to create something. I'm gonna have to be an investor at that table because I believe in it. Oh man, that's it. So really, like you said, I can see why you would struggle with answering that question, because technically, if we look at it from a realistic, honestly speaking point of view, any business should have a CFO from the beginning. Literally from the beginning, they should have a CFO, but it's not free, right? This kind of high level service is not free. So is there something that small businesses can do until they get to the point where they can actually hire a CFO?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, for every small business, I mean, if you're in that phase, is really figuring out what your key metrics are and really monitoring your key metrics. I mean, things like, common to just about every business is, what's your average revenue per month? And also, what's your average revenue per customer? So now that takes a little bit of math for you, but it's important to know, because, that's going to tell you, hey, how many customers do I need to either bring to my website, or how many customers do I need to sign up to make sure my business can fund itself? I mean, you also want to make sure you're understanding, your accounts receivable, because an important thing for business owners to know is, if you're in a business where you're sending invoices, just because you sent the invoice doesn't mean the money's going to show up in your bank account.
Cash flow problems.
Yes. You want to make sure that you are actually collecting on the invoices that you send. I mean, because you should be paid for the services and the products that you gave. So making sure that you're following up on that. So that's revenue, average revenue per customer, what's your accounts receivable, and then kind of what that cash flow looks like. If you're monitoring those, and then also, I think, yeah, definitely your average expenses per month. If you're monitoring those 5 things, I think you can do that on your own. And if you don't know how to, then, I mean, there's definitely tons of free videos out there. I mean, there's tons of, free content on our site where we talk about those 5 things.
I was
But
about
if
to
you're
say, yeah, you have a
if you're
huge
monitoring
library.
those things, I think, that is great for a business owner, because I've found that the business owners who monitor those things, it's only a matter of time before they grow to the point where they're like, hey, we can hire somebody to do this for us now.
Wow, wow, man. So y'all heard that coming from the mouth of a CFO. If you monitor those things, right, doing those small but important things, understanding those numbers will, I not saying will guarantee you, but it will put you in a better place of growth just by doing those small things. Wow, man, that is absolutely amazing information. Listen, you said, and I want to make sure that this is clearly put out here. Where can they go to get access to your resource of information? Because you have a library. So where can they go to get resource to your information?
Absolutely. Yeah. We got, I mean, we are amazingly blessed to be able to own the name Business Talk Library. So if you go to
Wow.
businesstalklibrary.com, I mean, it's one of those things when I think back on, I'm just like, man, I am so thankful that that name was still available. We've trademarked the name. We filed all the paperwork to protect it. Our legal team has helped with that. And we got the website because, I mean, it becomes a very great resource. So they can go to the businesstalklibrary.com. They're
Yeah.
going to see a ton of those resources there. Like a lot of the stuff that we do for free is there. I mean, we have, like I said, we've done over 480 interviews in the last 19 months, and probably
Wow.
another 100 videos of us just talking about different concepts and stuff. And that's not including all the guest feature stuff and the speaking engagement. So there is a
Wow.
ton of stuff out there. And one of the things that a lot of people ask me about was like, starting having like, courses on demand and stuff where we go in a little bit more specifics about specific topics, like, how to make sure your business is bankable, where you can get funding and stuff. And,
Mm.
where we really talk about like how to set your prices and stuff. Well, we used to have, courses where people can buy those individually. And one of the things that I realized is that, it's like, it wasn't something that we really wanted to spend our time on managing that. So what we've done is we're moving that over to Patreon, where people can just pay, for $40 a month, you get access to the entire library. Listen to what I think
Wow.
it's kind of like Netflix for all the courses. So, I mean, and I'll even tell people, I mean, even if you do it for a month, listen to everything and cancel it. I mean, it's fine. I just want you to get the value.
Wow, man, a man that's got a heart for the people, because you really just told people how to. Wow, that speaks to just how much passion you have to help people succeed, right? Like the whole entire library. Just do this one thing, get everything, and you're good. Okay, yeah.
No, I honestly know probably you won't get through everything in one month or whatever. But I mean, we really try to figure out how do we, lower the friction level, because, you trying to go buy individual courses and stuff like that. And right now there's probably like $3,000 worth of course content that's out there. I mean, I was up last night even going through with loading even more of it. So, I mean, we're loading about 4 to 5 courses a day right now of getting the library on there, to where, hey, for the $40 a month, you get access to all the library that's there. We're constantly adding more stuff, and the whole goal behind that is really, like I said, to provide people with the insight. Because what we realize is, some people, they just need the free insight or the free direction to kind of guide them, point them in the right direction, which is great. Some people need a little bit more detail in the courses and stuff. So that option is there. And then other people, they need, whether it's like a one-on-one coaching or the quarterly calls, that option's there. And then there are some people who, exceeded 325K a year. They're like, hey, we need ongoing support. And that option's there too, because we try to provide like, hey, whatever you need, whatever level you're at, we try to make sure there's an option for you to be able to get the help you need. Because, there are far too many businesses that are struggling and going out of business because they don't have a grasp on the numbers.
Right, right. Wow. $40 a month, over $3,000 worth of content. And like, so that's just the beginning tier. Like you said, you do offer one-on-ones, you can do the monthly service and things like that. But initially, even for free, they can just go to the Business Talk library, right? Look at all of the free resources there, start there. And if they feel like, okay, this has definitely been a wealth of information, I need more, they can pay the $40 a month on Patreon and then go get access to even more information and build it up from there. That's good. I like that. I like that. Okay, 'cause I was gonna say $40 a month sounds cheap. You need to bring that up, make it 3,000 a year or something like that. I don't know. I'm just saying because just in this, we've been talking now probably about 45 minutes. And just in this 45-minute segment alone, man, I do believe it is enough information here to change the trajectory of any small business who listens to this. Right. Because even for me, that's what I said in the beginning, I was just like fumbling over my words because I just couldn't believe just how much value you just gave just in that instance. Right. Like, did he say what I think he said? Let me get my words together because my mind was like, wow, it's really just that simplistic. But how important the health, the growth, the revenue, everything, man. I cannot express just how grateful I am for you coming on here, man. Even uh just grateful for you allowing me to be in your circle. You know what I'm saying? Like from when we first met, how we reached out on LinkedIn, we talked and we had a conversation and just your personality, man, is rare. And that's why I was like, I had to have you here, pick your brain. I'm glad you allowed me to do so, man. So forever grateful. Much appreciated.
Hey, well, I'm honored. I mean, I think it is a blessing that, that we were able to connect and meet. And so, thank you so much for, allowing me to share with your audience because, I'm real passionate about, trying to really help, business owners. And as something you and I talked before, I mean, there are a ton of accountants out there that I think they're a little more focused on job security than they are trying to really help the business owner. And I'm trying to attack that head on. It's like, hey, how do we help give the people the resources that they need, and really put it out there in a way that they can understand it? Because
That part.
there are a ton of things out there. Like, I see people like, going to graduate school, getting an MBA. They come out, they can speak the textbook lingo, but they can't apply it. So
Oh man, absolutely. Education without application. My goodness. My goodness. Man, yeah, no, yeah. So where outside of, Business Talk Library, where else might people look you up social media wise?
yeah, so LinkedIn is definitely probably the best and easiest place to find me, connect with me. I'm usually, checking my LinkedIn account on a regular. A couple people on my team have access to my LinkedIn. So if I don't see it, they'll see it, they'll let me know.
Okay. Okay.
So LinkedIn is probably the easiest place. We're doing a little bit more stuff on Facebook. But I would say LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to get in touch with.
LinkedIn. And just so, I mean, I know, the way social media works and me putting this out here on YouTube land in the world, people going to try to reach you, but respectfully, you specifically only deal with law offices and I'm assuming restaurants, because you talked a lot about helping restaurants and things like that, right? So that's your specific niche.
Yeah, so those are what I always tell people is, those are the things that we are great at. And I'll be
Right.
honest with you, it's going to be difficult for you to find someone that's better than us when it comes down to law firms and restaurants.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
I've talked to, over 100, accounting and finance professionals and firm owners. And I'm telling you, from even in having conversations with them, I know them. So I'm like, it's going to be difficult for you to find somebody better than us in those categories. Now, we are good at other things. But I always like to tell people what we are great at. And that's what we're great at. Like I said, on the CFO side, in building models and stuff like that. And like I said, from the text message and a 30-minute conversation, that was a hair care product line. I mean, we did the same thing where, a gentleman that's, investing to buy a par 9 golf course in Alabama sent me a Word document. And it was a double-spaced Word document with some stuff on there. Turn that into a full set of financials that they're now in talks of trying to go to the bank to get funding to actually finance the deal, to where on the CFO side, any business you bring to me, we can build a model for. But I would say when it comes down to bookkeeping and kind of the ongoing CFO services, law firms and restaurants are what we are great at, but we can do other stuff as well.
Gotcha. Man, well, again, Mr. Turner, man, I appreciate you being here. I know just by the wealth of information you shared, the family's going to love this. So yeah, I don't want to take too much more of your time, man. I thank you for being here. I'm overflowed. I'm overjoyed. I'm excited, really, because you just helped me solidify what I'm trying to do in my mission statement, which is help people become successfully self-employed by helping them understand the numbers. And I know this kind of conversation, at least that from my circle, we don't have enough of this type of high level conversation. So I'm excited, right? Which is what got me all flabbergasted all over the place, is having this type of high level conversation. So I appreciate you being here, and this ain't gonna be the last, right? Me and you, y'all gonna see a bunch of me and Terrell going on. It's gonna be TNT, right? We gonna be explosive. I'm gonna just put that out there because we got some more things to do. So thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, family, that was it, man. I for sure hope that you was taking notes, that you was picking up what he was dropping down. Beautiful nugget. Special thank you to Terrell Turner, CPA, for coming on here and sharing with us what's required to have a sustainable business, right? Like, let's move beyond the hustle and the grind. Let's become CFOs, or at least hiring, or getting to the point where we can have conversations with CFOs about what it really takes to be successful and build a sustainable business. Y'all know the deal. If you found value in this video, by all means, make sure you give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and for sure, make sure that you hit that bell icon, because I'm going to make sure that I get Mr. Turner back. Mr. Turner, I can't even talk right now. Still so excited that I get Mr. Terrell Turner back here on the show again to share with us more information, because if y'all was taking notes, he said a lot of things that need to be expounded on. So we got more like that coming up. Appreciate you for watching the video. Appreciate you for being here. Y'all know what I say. Run the numbers, folks. Numbers don't lie. People do. Run them numbers. Know that I love you, and I'll see you in the next one.
Perfect.